We have a global map that is practically on fire today. Right now, the United States is officially enforcing a literal naval blockade in the Middle East, complete with, actual sea mines and warship standoffs.
Yeah, putting the entire planet on the absolute brink of World War III.
Exactly. But while the geopolitical order is just melting down, the tech world is busy building these backflipping robots with warm, breathing synthetic skin.
Which is terrifying.
Completely terrifying. And then you have Justin Bieber out here charging festival prices to literally just sit at a desk and watch his own YouTube videos.
I still cannot believe that actually happened.
Oh, and you absolutely have to stick around to the end of the episode today because archaeologists just dropped breaking evidence about Neanderthals practicing selective cannibalism.
Right, and the details of who exactly they were eating it's completely insane.
We are Mike and Abby, and welcome to Daily World Podcasts. Forget everything you know about boring news. We are taking the wildest, most impactful stories that hit the planet today and breaking them down so you don't have to.
Whether you are on a long drive, crushing a workout, or just feeling a little bored, we are here to keep you updated with the world and make your next hour incredibly interesting.
All right, so we are starting with the heaviest, most consequential reality happening on the globe right now.
Yeah, we have to start there.
Right. So as of 1400 hours GMT on Monday, April 13th, 2026, the United States military, specifically CNTCOM, initiated a total comprehensive naval blockade of all Iranian ports.
And this is in the Arabian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, right?
Yes, exactly. We are talking about an unprecedented unilateral escalation here. The U.S. is essentially choking off an entire sovereign nation's maritime commerce.
Wait, back up. How does a blockade actually work mechanically?
Well,
Like, does it stop every single ship or just specific ones? Because the Persian Gulf is, it's one of the most crowded, chaotic shipping lanes on the planet. You can't just throw up a yellow caution tape across the ocean.
no, it is a massive logistical nightmare. But here is the exact mechanical breakdown of what CNCOM is actually doing. The executive branch authorized U.S. naval forces to use what they are calling a toll interdiction strategy.
Okay, a toll interdiction. What does that mean in plain English?
It means they're targeting any vessel in international waters that has paid transit tolls to the Iranian government.
So they are tracing the financial transactions of these cargo ships.
Exactly.
If a massive shipping conglomerate cut a check to Tehran just to pass through their sovereign waters, the U.S. Navy basically treats that ship as a target. That essentially turns international waters into a massive military traffic stop.
Precisely. CNTCOM's stated goal is the absolute cessation of maritime commerce entering or exiting Iranian sovereign territory.
That is a staggering level of control to try and enforce.
It is. Now, technically, the Pentagon claims that freedom of navigation for ships going to non-Iranian ports won't be impeded, but the operational reality on the water is just terrifying right now.
Because of the retaliation.
Right. Iranian forces have allegedly laid sea mines throughout the corridor in response.
Which fundamentally breaks the entire supply chain. I mean, you do not need to sink every ship to stop commerce.
No, you really don't.
You just need to introduce the statistical probability of a ship hitting a sea mine. Insurance premiums for maritime freight will skyrocket to the point where, companies just simply refuse to sail through the strait. It creates sheer psychological terror for the logistics industry.
And the rules of engagement are absolutely uncompromising right now. President Donald Trump issued a direct order stating that any Iranian force that fires upon U.S. assets or even harasses peaceful commercial vessels will be, and this is a direct quote, blown to hell.
Wow. That is about as blunt as foreign policy gets.
Yeah, no ambiguity there.
But jumping straight to a full naval blockade is a massive escalation. What happened to the diplomatic channels? How did we get to the point of literal sea mines floating around?
The diplomacy totally collapsed, just in spectacular fashion. Over the weekend, Vice President J.D. Vance was in Islamabad, Pakistan, engaged in this marathon negotiation session with Iranian officials.
Right, I saw that.
We are talking 21 straight hours in a closed room, 21 straight hours of trying to hammer out a consensus on, nuclear proliferation safeguards, war reparations, lifting economic sanctions, all of it.
And how did that go?
They walked away with absolutely nothing. The Iranian military is now calling the blockade illegal piracy, and they are openly warning that the United States is going to get sucked into a deadly vortex if they do not back down immediately.
A deadly vortex is not exactly the kind of rhetoric you want thrown around when a massive percentage of the world's energy supply flows through that specific strait.
No, it's really not.
When you have a diplomatic failure after 21 hours, it usually means both sides realize their baseline demands were just mutually exclusive. And I have to imagine the traditional U.S. allies are totally fracturing over this unilateral move.
Fractured is putting it mildly. The international response is a complete mess. The UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, completely walked away.
Really? The UK backed out?
Yep. He announced the United Kingdom would not support the blockade, choosing to pursue independent diplomatic channels instead. France, Spain, and Turkey are all aggressively backing away too, basically terrified of a broader regional conflict spilling over into Europe.
And what about China?
Oh, Beijing came out swinging. They condemned the blockade as a blatant violation of international norms and specifically pointed out how heavily their entire economy relies on Middle Eastern energy.
Well, because China understands the mechanics of an energy bottleneck. If oil and natural gas cannot get out of the Gulf, Chinese manufacturing just grinds to a halt. The cost of producing goods skyrockets, and that inflation cascades globally. So the Western alliance is divided, China is furious, and the actual regional powers must be militarizing rapidly.
The regional powers are absolutely hitting the panic button. Within 48 hours of the blockade commencing, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was scheduled to fly to Saudi Arabia at the urgent invitation of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
Oh, wow. So they are moving fast.
Extremely fast. They are officially activating their September 2025 defense pact. Pakistan has already deployed fighter jets and ground forces to Saudi Arabia to bolster the kingdom's defenses.
It is a total militarization of the entire region.
It is. And remember, this is all happening while kinetic operations are still raging elsewhere. Israel just conducted strikes in southern Lebanon, killing 6, while the Orthodox Easter truce between Russia and Ukraine completely shattered, with Russia launching 98 drones overnight.
The sheer volume of kinetic conflict happening simultaneously right now is staggering.
Yeah.
You have multiple theaters of war escalating and global supply chain literally hanging by a thread over this blockade.
But the tension isn't just military, which is the crazy part. It has bled into this surreal ideological culture war.
Of course it has.
At the exact same time as these warships are staring each other down, we have an unprecedented feud erupting between the White House and the Vatican.
The Vatican.
Yes. Pope Leo, who is the first U.S.-born pontiff in history, publicly refused to back down from his opposition to global rearmament. He actually labeled the current administration's drive for militarization a delusion of omnipotence.
A U.S.-born pope directly challenging a sitting U.S. president on the morality of a naval blockade. That is a historical anomaly. I assume the White House did not take that theological critique very well.
Not at all. On Truth Social, President Trump fired back, calling the Pope weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy. And then it turned into an outright AI meme war.
You cannot be serious.
I am dead serious. The president's account shared a highly produced AI-generated image depicting Trump in a Christ-like role performing miracles. The image was eventually deleted, but the internet never forgets. And in retaliation, California Governor Gavin Newsom jumped into the fray, releasing his own AI-generated counter-image depicting Trump as the Grim Reaper looming over the globe.
I am just so genuinely relieved that while literal physical sea mines are floating in the Strait of Hormuz and the global energy supply is totally paralyzed, the leader of the free world, a prominent governor, and the Vatican are busy engaging in an AI-generated digital meme war.
Right.
Because when history looks back at the brink of World War III, they will definitely want to analyze the prompt engineering of Gavin Newsom. That is what really matters here.
It is completely surreal. And just to be clear to the listener, we are looking at this strictly from a historical and mechanical perspective. We are impartially reporting this clash. We are not taking any political sides here.
Right, we're just looking at the facts.
But you have to admit, it is an absolutely bizarre era of geopolitical conflict where military brinkmanship and digital shitposting are happening simultaneously on the world stage.
It is objectively unhinged. You have aircraft carriers projecting hard power, and the countermeasure in the public sphere is a fake digital picture of a Grim Reaper. It proves that modern warfare is, as much about psychological narrative control as it is about physical territory.
If you are watching on YouTube right now, drop a comment and let us know whose AI prompt game you think is stronger, the White House or the Vatican. Let us know down below.
I'm really curious what people think about that one.
That alone is wild, but it completely pales in comparison to the absolute historic earthquake that just wiped out a 16-year political dynasty overnight in Europe.
And the sheer speed of this shift in Europe proves how fragile seemingly invincible governments actually are.
Let's talk about the Hungarian election results. For 16 consecutive years, Viktor Orban and his Fidesz party have held an iron grip on Hungarian politics.
16 years?
Yeah, they were the entrenched, immovable force in Central Europe. They controlled the media, they shaped the judiciary, they were the definition of an entrenched establishment.
But that just changed.
Big time. The official election results just finalized on April 13th, and Peter Magyar, leading the center-right Tisza party, absolutely crushed them.
To understand the gravity of this, you have to look at the mechanics of state control. When a leader is in power for 16 years, the entire apparatus of the state usually bends to ensure their re-election.
Right.
For a challenger to overcome that institutional advantage, it requires a massive structural rejection by the populace. What were the final numbers?
The numbers are a total bloodbath for the ruling party. Magyar and the Tisza party secured 53.6% of the vote.
Wow.
That translates to 138 seats out of the 199 in the Hungarian parliament. Orban's Fidesz party was left with just 37.8%, holding only 55 seats. The defeat was so absolute that Orban actually conceded immediately.
That is a staggering realignment. A 53 to 37 margin isn't just a victory, it is a mandate.
No.
It tells you that the economic stagnation, the fatigue with constant battles against the European Union, and the internal corruption scandals finally outweighed the state's control of the narrative. Peter Magyar somehow figured out how to bypass the traditional media channels that Orban controlled and tap directly into the electorate's frustration.
And the global community recognized the magnitude of this instantly. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez were immediately on the phone extending rapid congratulations to Magyar.
They wasted no time.
None. It is a massive turning point, not just for Hungary, but for the entire European Union's internal power dynamics. But what is truly fascinating is that Hungary isn't the only place where the foundational rules of power are being radically rewritten right now.
No, there's a huge wave of this.
We are seeing a simultaneous global restructuring of legal precedents across multiple continents.
It is like the judicial systems around the world all woke up this week and decided to completely redefine the limits of executive and corporate power.
Exactly. Let's look at South Africa first. The Constitutional Court there just handed down a ruling stating that private contractors are now liable for profits derived from unlawful public contracts.
That is massive. Mechanically, how public contracts usually work is that if a corporation bribes a government official or bypasses bidding laws to get a massive infrastructure project and they get caught, the contract is voided.
Right.
But historically, the company still gets to keep the profit they already extracted before getting caught. This new ruling flips the financial risk matrix completely.
Yep.
If the contract was unlawful, the state can claw back the actual profit. It makes corporate corruption a massive financial liability rather than just a cost of doing business.
It is a huge leap for corporate accountability.
Yeah.
Now pivot over to South Korea. The cabinet just approved a major constitutional amendment that fundamentally restricts the president.
Okay, how so?
To declare martial law now, the executive needs a 2/3 parliamentary majority and a national referendum.
Which completely strips the executive of unilateral emergency power. Martial law is the ultimate trump card for a government. It suspends civil liberties, puts the military in charge of domestic policing, and allows the state to bypass the legislature.
It's a total takeover.
By requiring a 2/3 majority and a literal public vote, South Korea is essentially guaranteeing that no single leader can ever use martial law as a tool for a dictatorial power grab. They are actively disarming the executive branch.
We saw the exact same philosophical shift in Colombia. The Constitutional Court of Colombia just struck down a presidential decree that attempted to seize emergency fiscal powers.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, the president tried to argue that a legislature rejecting a finance bill constituted an unforeseen crisis, warranting emergency authority. The court completely shot it down.
Because losing a legislative vote isn't an emergency, it's just democracy working as intended. The Colombian court is drawing a hard line. They are telling the executive branch, you cannot manufacture a crisis just because you don't like the legislative outcome. So in South Korea and Colombia, the courts are ripping power out of the hands of the executive. And in Turkey, The courts just upheld the state's power to conduct aggressive on-site competition inspections of corporations, further tightened the leash on monopolies.
But then you look at the United States, and the momentum is going in the exact opposite direction.
Of course it is.
While global courts are dismantling state power and demanding more oversight, the U.S. Supreme Court just summarily reversed a lower court ruling to reinforce qualified immunity for police officers, and they did it without even allowing full briefing or oral arguments.
For those who don't spend their days reading legal journals, qualified immunity is the legal doctrine that shields government officials, mostly police officers, from being held personally liable for constitutional violations. Mechanically, unless a plaintiff can prove the officer violated a clearly established statutory or constitutional right, which usually requires pointing to a nearly identical prior court case, the officer cannot be sued. By reinforcing this without even hearing arguments, the Supreme Court is aggressively consolidating state authority and protecting the executive branch's enforcers.
It is a glaring contrast. The rest of the world is actively decentralizing power while the U.S. judicial system is reinforcing it.
It really is.
But we'll get back to the fallout of this in a second, because while global courts are fundamentally redefining executive power, the U.S. domestic scene is literally shutting down and melting down at the exact same time.
It is hard to project global authority when you can't even keep the lights on in your own federal buildings.
The Department of Homeland Security, the DHS, is currently trapped in a partial shutdown due to a massive funding lapse. Yes, again. The situation is so dire that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce had to step in and issue an urgent, desperate plea to Congress, warning that the gridlock is severely jeopardizing both national security and economic stability.
Let's just pause and appreciate the irony here. The United States is actively executing a high-stakes naval blockade against Iran, risking global war, while the domestic agency, literally tasked with protecting the homeland from retaliation, is partially furloughed because politicians can't pass a budget.
It's unbelievable.
The logistical vulnerability that creates is staggering.
And the gridlock isn't just affecting the DHS, it is completely screwing over the domestic economy. Congress has everyone trapped in the bureaucratic hellscape of the newly implemented One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
I mean, what a ridiculous name for a bill that is literally choking the economy.
Oh, it's terrible. This was supposed to be a tax law designed to maximize savings, but the execution has been a total nightmare for small businesses. Importers are drowning in a labyrinth of paperwork trying to navigate these new aluminum tariffs.
We need to explain how tariffs actually work, because people often misunderstand them.
Yeah.
A tariff is not a tax paid by the foreign country.
Right.
It is a tax paid by the domestic business importing the good. So if a small American brewery needs aluminum cans from overseas, they have to pay this massive new tax up front.
Right.
The government created these supposedly complex refund processes in this new bill to help them recoup the costs. But if the agencies processing those refunds are underfunded or shut down, the small business just bleeds cash.
Exactly. It is an exasperating level of dysfunction. You have business owners spending thousands on tax attorneys just to figure out how to get their own money back from the government.
Yeah.
And nature doesn't pause for bureaucracy. President Trump just had to approve an emergency FEMA declaration for the Northern Mariana Islands because they got absolutely slammed by Typhoon Sinlaku. The infrastructure there is devastated, and they are relying on a federal apparatus that is currently choking on its own funding issues.
It is just a cascade of structural failures. When the federal government stalls like this, the states usually start taking matters into their own hands, which creates its own set of chaotic legal precedents.
Which brings us to Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis just signed a highly controversial new law that drastically expands the state's policing power over educational institutions.
Over schools.
Yes. This new measure gives state officials the direct authority to designate specific organizations as terrorist entities.
Wait, state officials,
Yeah.
not federal intelligence agencies. What does that mean practically for a student on a campus?
It means if a state-appointed official decides a student organization is a terrorist entity, the state can impose heavy sanctions, defund them, and actually expel students who are found to support or participate in these designated groups.
That's wild.
Civil rights organizations are absolutely losing their minds over this. They are arguing it is a massive infringement on constitutional protections, specifically the First Amendment right to free speech and assembly.
The chilling effect of that mechanic is immense. If a college student wants to protest a foreign war or a domestic policy, and the governor's office decides that protest aligns with an organization they've unilaterally labeled a terrorist group, the The student's academic career is just over.
Done.
It completely bypasses the federal judicial review process for domestic terrorism.
And if that wasn't enough political chaos for one day, we have a massive scandal breaking in California. Democratic Representative Eric Swalwell just abruptly suspended his California gubernatorial campaign.
That campaign was supposed to be a major pillar for the Democrats in the state. What triggered the collapse?
Media reports surfaced detailing very serious allegations of sexual assault.
Oh, fair.
Swalwell released a statement calling the allegations baseless smears orchestrated to sabotage his political rise, but the damage was instantaneous. Donors pulled out, endorsements evaporated, and the campaign is effectively dead in the water, just as it was gaining momentum.
That was fast.
Very. But the government might be scrambling for funding and fighting over campus protests. But one single company is sitting on a hoard of digital wealth so massive it defies logic. You have to hear these numbers to believe them.
Whenever we transition from government debt to private wealth, the numbers always make me slightly nauseous.
Prepare yourself. We are talking about Bitmine Immersion Technologies, ticker symbol BMNR. They just announced their total corporate treasury valuation has reached $11.8 billion.
Wow.
But the total dollar amount isn't the crazy part. Here is the kicker. BMNR now officially owns 4.04% of the entire global Ethereum supply.
Stop right there. Let's break down why that specific percentage is so alarming. 4% of a global currency controlled by one publicly traded corporate entity. That is over 4.8 million individual ETH tokens sitting in one corporate wallet.
Yes, but they aren't just sitting there. They have 3.3 million of those tokens actively staked on the network,
Which generates revenue.
That staked position alone is generating $212 million in annualized passive revenue. And they just uplisted to the New York Stock Exchange to launch their Naval platform, which they are calling an institutional-grade staking network.
Okay, we have to explain the mechanics of staking to understand the absolute hypocrisy of this situation. Ethereum operates on a proof-of-stake consensus mechanism.
Right.
Unlike Bitcoin, where computers solve math problems to process transactions, Ethereum relies on people locking up their money staking it to validate the network. The more money you stake, the more voting power you have over the network's reality, and the more you get paid in rewards.
So it is essentially like buying up the voting shares in a massive digital central bank.
Exactly. And the entire fundamental promise of cryptocurrency, the whole reason the white papers for Bitcoin and Ethereum were written, was decentralization.
That was the whole point.
It was supposed to be a financial system entirely free from the monopoly of massive centralized banks and Wall Street firms. But mechanically, proof of stake means wealth equals power. Now we have one single corporate entity hoarding 4% of the global supply, raking in hundreds of millions in passive income, and holding massive sway over the network's consensus.
It's insane.
It is the exact same centralized financial oligarchy the crypto community claimed to hate, just wearing a digital coat of paint.
It is a complete corporate takeover of Web3.
Yeah.
And the contrast between this digital hoarding and the broader physical economy is just brutal.
Oh, yeah.
You have BMNR sitting on an $11 billion Dragon's hoard. You have AI tech stocks absolutely exploding. CrowdStrike just announced they hit $4.8 billion in revenue. Guerrilla Technology stocks soared 54% in a week.
Yeah.
The digital economy is minting billionaires by the hour.
Right.
But out in the physical world, the everyday economy is punishing.
Because digital wealth doesn't put food on the table for the working class.
Precisely. Because of the Middle East naval blockade we discussed earlier, the supply chain shock has caused U.S. gas prices to hit $4 a gallon for the first time since 2022.
And while tech companies are automating everything, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is actively screaming about a severe structural worker shortage threatening long-term prosperity.
Yeah, they can't find people.
Small businesses can't find plumbers, electricians, or logistics workers. So the AI companies and the crypto whales are printing imaginary billions on screens while regular people are paying $4 for a gallon of gas. And local businesses are bleeding out because they can't hire anyone to do physical labor.
Pause for a second. If you are watching on YouTube right now, drop a comment. Do you think one corporate entity holding 4% of a supposedly decentralized global currency is an act of absolute financial genius? Or totally terrifying for the future of money? Let us know.
Yeah, I want to see those comments.
Money is rapidly becoming fully digital and untouchable, but the tech world is getting shockingly physical. Wait until you hear what the new robots in Hong Kong are doing right now.
I am bracing myself for the dystopian sci-fi reality chick. Give it to me.
There are two major robotics exhibitions happening simultaneously right now at the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Center. We are talking over 100 distinct robots and 330 models on display.
That's a huge showcase.
It is. Chinese manufacturers are just flexing completely autonomous humanoid capabilities that look like they walked out of a movie.
Give me the specifics. How advanced are the actual mechanics? Are we talking clumsy, slow-moving prototypes, or real agility?
Let's start with AGBot's X2 Ultra. This is a fully humanoid robot that is walking around the exhibition floor, conversing fluently in both Mandarin and English.
Okay.
It utilizes spatial awareness cameras to literally look at the audience, identify individual people based on the personal belongings they are holding in their hands, and then compose and sing a song to them based on those objects.
That requires massive real-time processing. It has to process visual data, run object recognition, generate language, and synthesize audio simultaneously while maintaining bipedal balance.
And if you want physical agility, look at Engine AI, a Shenzhen-based company. They're showing off their PM0 robot. This thing isn't just walking. It is executing flawless dynamic backflips on the convention floor to demonstrate mobility and kinetic recovery.
Oh, good.
Here.
Because the one thing humanity was desperately missing was a backflipping robot that can accurately catalog my personal belongings, assess my threat level, and sing to me in 2 languages. That definitely won't end poorly for us.
It gets weirder.
Great.
Industry experts at the event are predicting the next immediate phase of development, and it isn't about making them faster. They want to plug the gap in human-robot interaction. They're actively developing robots covered in soft synthetic skin that actually appears to breathe by expanding and contracting, and possesses internal thermoregulation to exchange physical warmth when touched.
Absolutely not. No, we do not need breathing robots with warm synthetic skin.
I knew you'd hate this. Mechanically, I understand why engineers want to bridge the uncanny valley to make robots more acceptable in caregiving or domestic roles. But simulating biological respiration and body heat crosses a psychological line. That is a hard pass.
Well, the market doesn't care about our comfort levels. China currently has more than 140 dedicated humanoid robot manufacturers. The growth curve is exponential, and while the robots are learning to breathe and backflip on Earth, humanity is aggressively pushing capital into orbit.
More space news.
Vast, a California-based startup, just announced they are officially launching Haven 1, the first independent commercial space module, in the second quarter of 2026.
So we are moving from government-funded space stations to private corporate space real estate.
Private space stations. And Blue Origin is launching their Pathfinder mission to test precision guidance systems. They are trying to land a descent engine within 100 meters of a specific predetermined target on the moon's south pole.
That's incredibly precise. Sierra Space is actively testing the Dream Chaser, which is a reusable commercial spaceplane, and Kepler Communications is launching a laser network to create literal orbital internet for all these new space assets.
So we have commercial lunar bases, orbital internet constellations, and warm-blooded robots. The hardware innovation is staggering. But what is happening with the underlying AI models that are supposed to be running all this infrastructure?
It is an absolute bloodbath of capital. Over at Google, they just unveiled TurboQuant alongside their new Gemma 4 model.
Let's translate TurboQuant. In large language models, the biggest limitation right now isn't processing speed. It is memory bandwidth. It is a memory bottleneck.
Right.
Think of an AI like a master chef working in a tiny kitchen. It doesn't matter how fast the chef can chop vegetables if they only have enough counter space to hold 2 onions at a time. The processor has to constantly wait for data to be swapped in and out of the VRAM.
That makes sense.
TurboQuant is essentially an algorithmic breakthrough that optimizes how the model routes its memory, vastly reducing that bottleneck so the AI can run faster and cheaper.
And cheaper is the operative word right now because the burn rates are catching up to the hype. OpenAI just brutally murdered Sora, their highly hyped, incredibly realistic video generation app. They completely discontinued it.
Why would they kill Sora? When they previewed that tech, the entire film and advertising industry went into an existential panic. It looked revolutionary.
Because it was incinerating cash at a rate that defied physics. Sora had an unsustainable capital burn rate of $15 million a day.
What?
$15 million every 24 hours just to keep the compute running, and it was generating minimal lifetime revenue to offset those costs.
They were burning $15 million a day. It is the financial equivalent of buying a fully loaded luxury private jet every single morning, flying it into the ocean and buying another one the next day.
Yeah.
Also, people could generate slow-motion videos of a golden retriever wearing sunglasses in space.
Pretty much.
The capital inefficiency in the AI sector is completely untethered from reality.
Yeah.
The hardware is advancing, but the software economics are just crashing.
So the robots are learning how to breathe, and we're setting up private lunar bases. But back here on Earth at Coachella, human beings are apparently forgetting how to put on a concert.
Oh, I saw the clips floating around social media. I genuinely thought it was an elaborate piece of performance art or a joke at first.
It was not a joke. Justin Bieber was the highly anticipated Saturday night headliner for Weekend 1 at the Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival. He gets on the massive main stage, the lights go down, the crowd is screaming, and for nearly 25 minutes, he just sits at a desk with a laptop.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting there. He projected his laptop screen onto the massive festival monitors and proceeded to watch his own old YouTube clips, interspersed with viral, non-musical internet videos from 2025.
Are you kidding me?
No, he was essentially just doing a live reaction stream to himself on screen, occasionally singing along to a chorus.
Imagine the mechanics of that transaction. You drop hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars on a VIP Coachella ticket. You coordinate travel. You stand in the desert heat for hours to secure a spot, all to watch a multimillionaire sit at a desk and watch his own YouTube channel. The audacity of charging festival prices for a Twitch stream is staggering.
The internet is completely divided. Some diehard fans called it nostalgic intimacy and praised his vulnerability.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, but the vast majority of attendees called it the biggest, most arrogant ripoff in festival history. Thankfully, Karol G saved the weekend.
Good.
She became the first Latina artist to headline Coachella, delivering this massive, high-energy, historic set with full choreography, explicitly praising the resilience and cultural impact of Latino immigrants in her speech.
That is what a headlining performance is supposed to look like, respect for the audience. But let's ask the listeners. If you are watching on YouTube right now, drop a comment. Would you rather pay festival ticket prices to stand in the dirt and watch Justin Bieber watch himself on a laptop, or receive a 9 rupee salary raise for an entire year?
That is a brutally specific and depressing choice, but it is a real story. In Delhi, India, a tech professional went incredibly viral after posting about his annual performance review. After a full year of labor, his company awarded him a raise of exactly 9 rupees.
For context, 9 rupees is roughly 11 cents in U.S. currency. For the entire year.
For the entire year of 2025. And he can't even quit because he is stuck in a predatory 2-year employment bond. He posted a video describing the absolute despair of feeling like a literal slave to a hyper-optimized, cost-cutting corporate market.
The sheer disrespect of human resources, even doing the administrative paperwork to process an 11-cent raise, is mind-blowing. It costs the company more money in server electricity to process the payroll change than the raise is actually worth. It is purely insulting.
And workers around the globe have clearly had enough of the disrespect. In China, a corporate worker went viral for taking a 5-hour protest nap at her desk.
5 hours.
5 straight hours of just sleeping on the job. When management confronted her, she explicitly stated her salary was too low to justify active labor, telling them, "You get what you pay for."
Honestly, good for her. If the corporate contract is broken, the labor contract gets broken too.
Meanwhile, the celebrity news cycle is a complete mess today. Britney Spears has sadly entered a rehab facility for substance abuse treatment, asking for privacy.
Yuck, sad.
The bizarre legal war between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni over their film continues. A judge just dismissed 10 of Lively's 13 claims because she was legally classified as an independent contractor, which mechanically bars her from filing federal workplace harassment claims. And Sydney Sweeney showed up to the Euphoria Season 3 premiere at Coachella, dressed literally as a giant baby.
Just a completely normal, well-adjusted day in Hollywood.
Oh.
But let's pivot to something that actually requires discipline. We need to talk about the physical mechanics of what happened at Augusta National.
The Masters. Sunday at Augusta was an absolute masterclass in psychological pressure. Rory McIlroy successfully defended his green jacket, winning back-to-back Masters titles. Do you know how statistically rare that is?
It's incredibly rare.
He is only the fourth man in the long storied history of the sport to do it, joining the absolute legends Jack Nicklaus, Nick Faldo, and Tiger Woods.
That is the Mount Rushmore of golf.
Yeah.
To defend a title at Augusta means your mental game is untouchable. But from what I saw, it wasn't exactly a clean walk down the fairway to the finish line, was it?
Not at all. It was a complete heart-stopping thrill ride. He started Sunday co-leading with Cameron Young, but McIlroy completely choked on the fourth hole, carting a devastating double bogey early in the round.
Ouch.
He had to battle his way back through the infamous Amen corner, miraculously hitting birdies on the 12th and 13th holes to stay in contention. Then we get to the 18th hole, the final drive of the tournament. He steps up to the tee box and hits a vicious, uncontrolled slice. The ball completely misses the fairway and lands deep in the pine needles near the 10th hole.
The absolute worst time to slice a drive. Mechanically, hitting out of pine needles is a nightmare.
It's the worst.
You have no stable footing, the club face can easily twist upon impact with the debris, and you cannot predict the spin on the golf ball. It is a crapshoot.
It is terrible, but McIlroy channels absolute magic. He hits a miracle recovery shot out of the thick pine needles, threading it into the front bunker, and manages to salvage a bogey. That single bogey on 18 was just enough to win the tournament by one stroke, finishing at 12 under par.
Wow.
He barely edged out world number one Scottie Scheffler, who shot an incredibly disciplined, bogey-free weekend, but just couldn't catch him.
It is the ultimate test of resilience. And let's not forget the opposite of resilience, Sergio Garcia. He finished a miserable 8 over par and received a formal conduct warning from the tournament officials because he completely lost his mind and smashed his driver into a water cooler.
Golf is a gentleman's game until the water cooler looks at you funny. And real quick, over in the NHL, the Washington Capitals are fighting for their playoff lives. They just shut out the Pittsburgh Penguins 3-0.
That was a huge game.
Goaltender Logan Thompson was an absolute wall, stopping all 24 shots. And Connor McMichael scored twice in the third period to seal the victory and keep their postseason hopes alive.
Incredible performance.
Okay, I promised you insane, world-shifting archaeology at the beginning of the show, and here is the payoff. Scientists in Greece just announced the discovery of a 3,000-year-old sanctuary on the island of Ithaca that they believe definitively belonged to the legendary Trojan war hero Odysseus.
Wow.
They found inscribed clay tiles and Mycenaean ritual objects at the site.
Finding physical, tangible evidence tied to Homeric epics is incredible. It drags myth into the realm of recorded history. But you hooked me earlier with cannibalism. What was the breaking study about Neanderthals?
Right. So a massive new scientific study was just published on April 12th, examining remains found in a cave in Belgium. Archaeologists found definitive, deeply unsettling evidence of selective cannibalism among Neanderthals.
Selective, meaning they weren't just eating whoever happened to die of natural causes in the cave.
Exactly. This wasn't just survival cannibalism during a harsh winter. The forensic mechanics of the discovery, the specific butchery marks, the bone processing to extract marrow, showed a very clear, deliberate pattern.
Okay, what was the pattern?
The Neanderthals systematically targeted outsiders. Specifically, they were hunting and consuming women and children from rival neighboring groups.
That is horrifying.
It was a calculated tribal targeting designed to eliminate rival genetics while consuming calories. Now, to balance that incredibly dark history, another archaeological study from Tinshemet Cave showed evidence that around 110,000 years ago, Neanderthals and Homo sapiens actually collaborated. They shared tools and worked together in complex, cooperative social structures.
It really forces you to think about the deeply ingrained duality of human nature. You look at our ancient ancestors. One group is forming cooperative societies across entirely different hominid species to survive, and another group is systematically hunting and eating the women and children of their tribal rivals.
Yeah.
And then you look at us today, sitting here in 2026. We are engineering artificial intelligence that can cure diseases. We are launching commercial space stations, but we are also mining international waterways, enforcing naval blockades, and threatening to blow each other to hell over fossil fuels. Are we actually evolved, or do we just have much better, highly technological tools for our ancient tribalism?
That is exactly the thought we are leaving you with today. With robots getting synthetic breeding skin, AI generating papal meme wars, and humans literally launching private space stations, maybe the real question isn't whether we are advancing, but whether our technology is evolving faster than our ancient tribal instincts.
It's definitely something to think about.
All right, if we made your drive, your workout, or your downtime even a little bit better today, do us a massive favor. Whether you are watching on YouTube, streaming on Spotify, listening on Apple Podcasts, or literally anywhere else, hit that follow or subscribe button right now. We drop episodes like this every single day, bringing you the world's news in the most interesting way possible. Lock in, because you do not want to miss the crazy stories we have queued up for tomorrow. See you then.